My name is DJ at Large, and I will be your host. And over the next couple of weeks, Asisa Foundation will be helping you to build a relationship with your money, your mula, your chankuras through the L+EARN Consumer Financial Education Program. Our hashtag across social media and in the chat box below is hashtag secure the bag. Today is our fourth webinar, believe it or not, and it's all about entrepreneurship and side hustles. So please drop me a message in the chat box at the bottom. Let me know where are you currently watching from. And use the hashtag secure the bag. See a couple of people already saying, good afternoon, DJ, you're giving us that energy. I was born when this song came out. Let's see, Mokwena says, I'm currently at VUT. Musia says, I'm out at the University of Pretoria, out in Hatfield. Felicity using that hashtag secure the bag. Kwanele, currently out at UKZN. And of course, I see Mumpelo saying University of Pretoria. So we've got young people in the audience from all over the country. Welcome, welcome, welcome to our webinar. So remember to visit the L+EARN website, which is www.l+earn.org.za, right? There you can access some great financial resources, such as the recordings of our previous webinars. Today's webinar will also be available on the platform next week. So if you have any issues, any concerns, any worries, please send an email to sarah@groundedmedia.co.za. Talking about last week's webinar, I would like to announce our 9 winners from last week. Maybe you've won something, right? So for our top 3 winners for chats and comments, these are the winners: Nawal Sassman, Nazon Roman, and Karabo Ratiseng. Halala! You guys are top 3 winners. That's for chats and comments. Let's see. And then our top 3 winners for top session engagement is Hasina Sami, Bertha Tanaka Kwatida, and Malaika Abraham. Shout out to them for winning. And then our top 3 winners for pre and post surveys is Kayisha Maharaj, Bungumu Sakumete, and Fatima. Shout out to all our winners. And if you would like to win this week, engage with us in the chat box, ask questions in the Q&A tab, comment, participate in the polls. That's how you could be a winner next week, right? In terms of our webinars, we had our 3rd webinar last week. As I mentioned, if you missed it, don't stress, get onto the L+EARN website. And of course, check under news and events for 2022 webinars. That's where you'll find the webinars. We still have 3 more interactive webinars to go. So please put these dates in your diary and set a reminder. We will be covering entrepreneurship and side hustles. That's today. The next week, it's all about managing credit. And then after that, it's all about work readiness. Over the next 3 weeks, we will be helping you to build a relationship with your money, your mula, your chankuras. So in today's webinar, we'll also be joined by 2 special guests. Let me give them a quick virtual high five. That's Tepiso Malema and Owen Muzambi. Let me see the gents. Let me unshare. I want to see the gents. Where are they? I heard they're very handsome looking brothers. Where I see Owens there. Where's Tepiso? Tepiso, show us your camera. Give me a virtual high five, gents. Oh, yes. All right, cool stuff. So the guys will be joining us a little bit later on. They will be sharing their insights, their stories, their knowledge in terms of entrepreneurship and side hustles. Looking forward to having that chat with Sepiso and, of course, with Owen. So before we get started and start talking about entrepreneurship and side hustles, I have a random money question for our audience. I want to know from you guys, if you were given 10,000 Rand, what kind of side hustle would you start? So go to the chat box at the bottom, click, give me your answer, and of course, use the hashtag secure the bag. If you were given 10,000 Rand, what kind of side hustle would you start? I'll go first, right? So I've spotted an opportunity and a bit of a problem in the area where I live, right? So in the area where I live, we use wheelie bins, right? Those black bins that you basically push, they've got wheels. And I think a side hustle around cleaning the wheelie bins, repairing them, branding them would be a great side hustle, right? So as I said, in my area, we use these wheelie bins. And what I've noticed is that some people's bins are very dirty. Then that attracts rats and all of that. Some of these wheelie bins are broken, so moving it around is a little bit of a challenge. And then other wheelie bins don't have a marking, so they don't show which house number they belong to. So they could easily get stolen. So that's where I think a side hustle would make sense. These wheelie bins, I clean them, I repair them, I brand them. I think I could make some money. But what is your idea? If you were given 10K, what kind of side hustle would you start? Let me go into the chat. Let's see. Mary says, hashtag secure the bag. I would start selling sneakers and some hoodies. Nice, I like it. Yvonne says, hashtag secure the bag. My side hustle will be catering. So Yvonne is here with the pots. And the pans. Asipe says, I would expand my existing popcorn business. Lovely, shout out to you. Poloko says, I would start a poultry farming business. Hashtag secure the bag. Let me see. Oh, Ayanda says, I would open a shisanyama. Now, based on my size and my stomach, you know I would be at that shisanyama all the time. So let's talk a bit about entrepreneurship, right? So entrepreneurs have an interesting mindset. They are always seeking solutions to problems within their environment and then monetizing those solutions. And really, that's what entrepreneurship is all about. It's the ability to take a solution from a concept to profitability. And entrepreneurs possess certain types of skills and traits that can be developed by anyone, right? So, some of these skills and traits are, entrepreneurs are quite independent. They are optimistic, so they're always positive. They focus on the future, so they're always planning ahead. They have an ability to generate ideas, and sometimes these ideas aren't necessarily brand new, right? They're quite persistent, so they don't give up. They exude this passion, this confidence, and they're very, very resilient, right? So entrepreneurs are a special breed of individuals. I think a big part of entrepreneurship is developing a business model and then managing that business. So you've got an idea. How do you assess that this idea will work? What do you need to do, right? So one of the things that you can do is use something called the business model canvas, right? And it will assist you in developing your business idea by considering certain critical things that make up this business. We will be focusing on 3 things, right? So value proposition, customer segments, and revenue streams. And we'll be analyzing these 3 using existing businesses, right? We want to make it a little bit practical for you. So we're going to start with the first one, which is value proposition. And we will use Uber as an example, right? So value proposition answers this question. What value are you delivering to your customer? And which one of your customers' problems are you helping to solve? So let's use Uber as an example, right? Uber is one of the most successful e-hailing taxi companies in the world and in South Africa, right? And they are in the business of transportation, but they don't even have any cars, which is really, really interesting. And they use sophisticated technology that create a link between the passenger who needs a ride and then the driver who actually owns a vehicle, right? So what are some of the value propositions of Uber, of this company, right? The one is affordability, right? So Uber provides different price options from economy to luxury. So, those people that get into Uber Black. So it's about affordability, but there are these different options. It's also an on-demand service. So you can basically catch an Uber anytime, practically from anywhere. Uber's also hassle-free and is a convenience for a lot of people, right? So the technology allows the driver to know exactly where you are and then to also make your payment as well. So hassle-free, it's convenient. So the 3 value propositions for Uber is affordability, on-demand service, and it's hassle-free and it's a convenience, right? In the chat box below, let me know, in terms of Uber, what other value propositions do you notice, right? What value do they bring to customers and how are they solving customers' problems? So that's all about value proposition. Now onto customer segmentation. And we will use McDonald's as a really good example, right? So customer segmentation answers this question. with your business idea, how will you be solving for, and how will you be solving some of the issues that your customers have? Do you understand their needs, their wants, the environment that they live in, how they function? Do you understand your customers and what they actually need? Right. And when we think about McDonald's, I mean, it's one of the biggest restaurant chains in the world, and they service a lot of different types of customers. And they are able to successfully serve these customers because they've segmented them into different groups that have different needs, right? And they particularly do this with their menu. McDonald's is very, very smart when it comes to customer segmentation. So let's go through it from a McDonald's point of view. At McDonald's, they serve kids, right? And these kids get what? A Happy Meal, they get toys, they get a play area. And then McDonald's has families, another part of their customer segments. And when you notice, they've got family meals because they want to encourage a family to come into the restaurant or to go through the drive-through, so they've got the family meals. And then lastly, they then have working adults. So those individuals that want to grab a quick meal and go. And if you've noticed in the new McDonald's restaurants, I noticed this the other day, there's a lot of plug points at McDonald's. And I think they want people to come to work there. You know, you're on your laptop while you're eating. So you can see that even in the way that they designed the restaurant, they want to segment their customers. So you've got kids and they've got Happy Meals, you've got families, there's family meals, then you've got working adults who are coming there to grab a meal and to go. But now there are all these plug points that encourages them to sit in, to order, to have something to drink, right? So once again, in the chat box, let me know, what other segments do you see at McDonald's, right? Use the hashtag secure the bag. What other segments do you see at McDonald's? And of course, let's interact, let's talk, let's encourage each other, let's teach each other. But McDonald's, I think, is a really great example of how to, get that customer segmentation right. And now onto revenue streams. And we'll be using Legends Barbara, right, as an example. So I go there, hence you see my chest corp is just, my beard needs a little bit of work, so I have to go back to Legends Barbara, but that's okay. Let me not digress. So we'll be talking about revenue streams and we'll be talking about Legends Barbara, right? And Legends Barbara has several types of income streams, right? So any business can have several types of revenue streams. So when we talk about revenue streams, we're talking about how does the business actually make money? How do they make income? And so they can make income from sales, from fees for usage. They could have a subscription fee. They could do renting and leasing. They could do licensing. They could do brokerage fees. They could do advertising fees. And I think we'll use Legends Barbara as an example, right? So they are obviously, one of South Africa's growing saloon businesses, and its success comes from its ability to have multiple sources of revenue on top of the ability to provide hair grooming services for men. So they cut hair, right? But when you look at their revenue streams, it's not just cutting hair. So the first thing is, yes, they cut hair. So there's a hair grooming for men. But at Legends Barbara, they also sell products. So all of a sudden, they've got hair products for males, they've got shampoos, they've got beard oils. So they've started to expand their revenue streams. Another thing that Legends Barbara does that's really, really interesting is they do leasing and lending, right? So you could go to Legends Barbara, you could rent out a space, you could rent out a chair at one of their saloons. And this is for independent hairstyle specialists. So you've already got clients, but you don't have a location where you can service your clients. And so you can then rent space at Legends. The last way that they also make revenue is through advertising, right? So at Legends, they utilize some of their space within the barber shop to do advertising of men's clothing, right? So this is on behalf of your men's retail stores. So within Legends Barbara, which is really, really interesting, is they'll cut your hair, they'll do all the grooming, which is great. But then they sell products like shampoos, beard oil. Then they do the leasing. So if you are already a barber, but you don't have a space, you don't have a chair to service some of your clients, you can then go and rent. And then there's this advertising revenue also within the barber shop. So, your entrepreneurial journey, your business, it has to have these revenue streams, multiple revenue streams. And that's what some businesses have been able to do. So let's just recap real quickly, right? The three important aspects that make up a business is your value proposition, your customer segmentation, and your revenue streams. They are more things, right? But we wanted to focus on these three. Now, onto side hustles, right? So what exactly is a side hustle? Well, a side hustle is something that you do in addition to your job or to your school day, right? So side hustles are usually freelance in nature, and they're sometimes linked to something that you're passionate about, that you're interested about, and they provide a supplementary income. So in the chat, we had people talking about how they want to open a shisanyama, they want to get into catering. Those are people that like to cook. There was somebody who said they'd like to get into baking. That's somebody that likes to bake. So, most of the time, a side hustle is linked to something that you're really interested in, that you have a passion in, but it's not always the case. But what is important is that it provides a supplementary income. So let me share a couple of tips in terms of side hustles, right? 4 tips. Number 1, a side hustle does not need to be complicated. It does not need to be an out-of-the-box idea with expensive equipment. A side hustle just needs to be profitable. It needs to make you money. That's the first tip, right? The second tip is this. Try and link your side hustle to your hobby, a skill, something that you're interested or passionate about. I think it's a great place to start if you're thinking of starting a side hustle. Number 3, try and ensure that you can spare enough time to do the side hustle, right? Because the side hustle requires time outside of your job, outside of school. So the time element is quite important. And number 4, if you already have a 9 to 5 and you want to get into a side hustle, check your employment contract, right? Talk to HR, ask them if you are allowed to have a side gig, as some companies won't allow you to be able to do that. So just a couple of tips in terms of side hustles, right? And one of the questions that always comes up is, what is the benefit of having a side hustle? At large, we hear you, you're saying all the right things, but what are the benefits, right? Perhaps you are unsure if you should start one or not. These are some of the reasons that you should consider, or some of the benefits of actually having one. The first is income diversification. A side hustle may lead to you having a second stream of income. We need this money. We need this money so that we can build an emergency fund, so that we can save, so that we can invest, so that we can pay off some of our debt. You could even use that money to create a fund, right? So that you can buy the things that you want, so that you can do some of the things that you enjoy. The other advantage of having a side hustle and having this additional income is that this business, this side hustle, could eventually become a business, right? If it's really, really well, it can actually become a real sustainable business. The other thing is that a side hustle and the second income is a great path to financial independence and wealth creation. So you have your main allowance or your main salary, and then you've got the second income that you can do so many different things with. You can save, you can invest, you can have your emergency fund. So those are some of the benefits of having a side hustle. And I hope that encourages you to take that next step. Now, for those that are considering having a side hustle, they're saying, cool, at large, we hear all the beautiful benefits of actually having one. We want to be able to save, to invest, to do all of these things, right? How do I know that I'm ready to start a side hustle? There's a couple of things that you need to ask yourself, right? A couple of questions, and these are them. What are you good at, right? Is it cooking? Is it singing? Is it dancing? Is it baking? What are you good at? Let that guide you. What do you enjoy doing effortlessly? I like to speak. It's very easy. Hence, I'm doing a webinar, right? Makes sense. What do your friends often ask you about? So if your friends always ask you about cars, they always ask you about a specific thing, that might be a place to look into. What's that one thing that you are most dependable for, right? That could guide you in terms of what type of side hustle should you have? Do you have the skills to actually do it? The next one is, what problems can I solve with this skill? So whatever skill that you have, what problems could you potentially solve with it? And then how can you monetize the skill? And then who can you sell to? If you're going to sell, who can you sell it to? So as an example, if you're into baking, go through all of those questions. Who could you sell your cookies, your muffins to? How do you monetize the skill? What problem are you trying to solve? People are hungry, so you're solving a real important problem, right? Are you dependable for baking, for cooking? Do your friends often ask you for recipes? If they've cooked something and it didn't go well, do they ask you, do you enjoy baking and cooking effortlessly? So these are some of the questions that you need to ask yourself to know that you're ready to now take the next step in terms of that side hustle. The other thing that I think is really crucial with a side hustle is some people start a side hustle and then they don't keep track of the money. They just eat it. And you cannot do that. When it comes to a side hustle, it's important to keep track of your money. And once again, I've got a couple of tips and things for you to consider. The first is, one of the things that you could do is have a separate account for your side hustle, right? To keep record of income, expenses generated from the side hustle. So have two separate accounts. Don't let the money come into one account, separate it, right? The other thing is to keep all your slips, all your invoices, so that you can track all of your expenses. So if we're going back to the baking thing, you have to buy all of these ingredients. Keep the slips, right? So you'll know, what did you buy? How much did it cost you? The last tip and thing for you to consider is this idea of planning and assessing. If you're keeping track of the income that's coming in and the expenses, you'll be able to tell if the side hustle is working or not. Is it profitable or not? The only way you'll know is if you're keeping track of the expenses and the income so that you can plan it better. But you can't create a side hustle, then you just eat the money. You have no idea of whether the side hustle is actually making money or is it actually costing you money. So I'd like to bring on Tshepiso Malema, a multifaceted and talented young man from the streets of Ivory Park, 1632 Tembi. So that's where I'm from as well. He's currently a second-year student at the University of Pretoria, studying a BIT Information Systems. He is an award-winning social entrepreneur and speaker who was named as one of the Mail and Garden 200 Young South Africans of 2022. Tshepiso, welcome to the webinar. It is absolutely lovely to have you. How are you doing, brother? You well? I think you're on mute, brother.
Oh, sorry about that. Am I audible now?
Yes, I can hear you wide and clear. I can hear you. How are you doing? Are you well, brother?
I'm well. It feels good to be here, you know. It's going down in the chats.
There's so much happening in the chats. I love it. I want to talk a bit about your entrepreneurial journey. How did it start? And what are you currently doing? What's your current business?
Well, my entrepreneurial journey, you know, started at a tender age of like 12, whereby I was selling, you know, the cool times, that is ice pops that we used to sell, you know, the traffic robots. And that time for me, it wasn't about entrepreneurship. I didn't even know what is entrepreneurship, you know. For me, I just wanted to buy a pair of soccer boots for myself. And fast forward later, grade 10, I participated in this program that was run by African Bank for startup entrepreneurs. And as I participated, that's why I realized my passion as an entrepreneur. And from there, I had ever since, you know, I started my entrepreneurial journey, I had one idea, of which it's, you know, starting a gaming facility in my township, you know. And for me to have that passion for gaming, also it was because I didn't have, you know, the gaming consoles. So the only time whereby, you know, I would have a chance to play games, it was when I visited my cousins in the suburbs. And which it's still a reality for most young people who are growing up in the townships right now. You know, they don't have access to these technological devices. So yeah, my business currently, it's called Gamers Territory, of which it's an esports development center aiming to bridge the gap, you know, of the fourth industrial revolution into the townships.
What a beautiful journey, Tshepiso, because one, you start out as this young entrepreneur, you just want to sell, you just want to get soccer boots, right? So you've got this goal in your mind. I can actually see you in my mind actually selling this and then bringing gaming into L+EARN, you know, Ivory Park. I absolutely love that. During this entrepreneurial journey of you, what are the skills that you picked up or the skills that you gained?
You know, it's a lot, you know. But most of all, what I learned so much is, the spirit of teachability, because you cannot do it alone. You need to have, people, who've been there, who've been, on the journey that you are actually, stepping into, because entrepreneurship, it's not for the faint-hearted, as they say, and also, resilience, because it wasn't as smooth as I thought it would be. This journey, it wasn't as smooth as I thought. And I believe, teachability and resilience are one of the skills that I would highlight so much, because that's where you now know, okay, I'm an actual entrepreneur. Without resilience, I don't think you'd survive in this industry.
You mentioned such important things that I mentioned earlier on in the webinar, resilience. But there's something else as well that I want us to emphasize. It's this teachable spirit. When you're an entrepreneur, when you have a side hustle, you have to be willing to learn, to humble yourself, to ask, to research, to not go in with this mentality that you know everything, right? And it's okay to not know everything, right? Because that's why we call it an entrepreneurial journey. And I absolutely love yours. I'm very curious to know, in terms of what you've created at Ivory Park, where we bring all these kids together to get into this idea of gaming and this e-world. Did you get any funding? Did you apply for funding? I mean, how did you get all of your equipment and so forth?
Well, that's really a nice question, because a lot of young people are sitting down with their ideas because they're waiting for funding. With me, I never received any funding, to start. So what happened is that I actually won a laptop in a school competition that I was part of. So I participated in a lot of, competition. They say, hey, apply for this. I just put in my name, so it happened that, I won a laptop, and the first thing that I did with that particular laptop was to install a FIFA game, and after installing a FIFA game, now, like, I'm this one kid that has a laptop, in the hood, and now all my friends are coming to my place to play. I was like, what, let me just turn this into a business, because I can't just allow people to every day they're here at home playing mahala. No, let me just, 2 rand per game until, it increased. And through, these entrepreneurial programs that I was part of, and also having mentors, I was guided to actually now, I'm glad that you mentioned the business model canvas. I was taught how to do that, while I was at grade 10, and the business plan that we're actually using for Gamers Tutor, it's a business plan that I drafted back in grade 10, so from, all learning from people, going to YouTube, having a solid, business model, it actually helped me to actually now start reinvesting back to the business through that one laptop. And I reinvested back to the business. From reinvesting back to the business, I actually now saw also a need to collaborate with other people, because there was one guy who was actually, having the same business as I had. And, other than us having a competition, I was like, no, let us collaborate, because I can see you have a space, I have this laptop, and it's making money, and let's just see what we can do. And from there, we actually, started together, collaborated, partnered. Then after that, it was a matter of now reinvesting back to the business and getting more equipment. Then got equipment. Fast forward, Gamers Tutor right now has it's about to launch another facility in Alexander in Soweto, and also here in Hatfield. So like it's all a matter of reinvesting back to the business. So the only cash injection that we got as Gamers Tutor was through entrepreneurial competitions. I entered competitions such as Sage Entrepreneurship competition. I also entered EDHE. I encourage everyone to check it out. It's Entrepreneurship Development in Higher Education. It's EDHE, just Google EDHE. It has a lot of opportunities for young people who are entrepreneurial in universities.
Yes, such an inspiring story. Tsepiso, lastly, what I'm curious to know is you're obviously a student. How are you balancing, being a student and tutorials and exams and then having this business as well? How are you balancing these two?
Yo, it's actually a tough one, I can't say it's an easy journey, because I always describe myself as a student by day and an entrepreneur by night. I had my classes in the morning, and right now, this is like actually the logo of my business. Right now, I have to actually pop back to Ivory Park to actually check on the business, and I'll be back later. So it's just a matter of prioritizing on what's important, what brings value to you, and also I believe having people around you who support your vision. Have people who you'll rely on when it comes to school. If I missed the class due to a meeting that I have to attend, there should be someone who's, oh man, okay, this is what we did in class. And also in my business, I do have, people who actually, are actually doing most of the work behind the scene, and I really appreciate them. So it's all about matter of having people.
Absolutely love that. Tsepiso, thank you so much for sharing your insights, for inspiring us. I'd love for you to go into the chat box and see all the messages that people have for you. You're really inspiring people. Absolutely love that. Another gentleman that I also love to bring into the conversation is another inspirational gent as well, Owen Muzambi. That's who I want to bring into the conversation. He's the founder and executive director of Driven Advisory, Pty Ltd, an innovation and development consultancy that designs and implements enterprise development interventions supporting micro and small businesses across South Africa. So he's very skilled and experienced in helping to develop startups. Owen, thank you so much for joining us, brother.
Tsepo, thank you for having me.
Lovely. Owen, as Tsepiso was speaking, I felt so motivated and inspired, because one of the things that keeps coming up in the news is that there's a lack of jobs. Young people are sitting at home. What role does entrepreneurship play in the country right now in solving some of these issues?
I think for the next number of years, we're going to see this issue of jobless growth in the country. So what jobless growth means, yes, the economy is growing at very small scale, but it's really not creating any jobs. So the reality for most of the people that are on the call now is, if you're in school now, chances are you might be one of those people that will be part of the stats that might not be able to get a job, either because your skills are not matched to what is required by industry, or either there are these big global challenges that the world is facing, like the war between Russia and Ukraine. It has an impact on how much South Africa's economy grows, and has an impact on how many people can actually get jobs. And so there are all these different issues that, complex issues that challenge the economy. But research does say entrepreneurship is one way that jobs can be created. But when you look at South Africa particularly, there is an organization called the Global Entrepreneurship Monitor, and they've done research on how South Africa and all the other countries are doing when it comes to starting businesses and entrepreneurship. When it comes to South Africa, we are at least on the African continent, we are the country that has the lowest number of young people starting businesses for different reasons. Number one, fear of failure is one of them. Number two, a perception that they don't have the capabilities. Number three, there's a culture of wanting to be secure, or wanting to get government jobs that are more secure. So there are all these different cultural shifts that still need to happen within South Africa. So compared to the rest of the continent, compared to Malawi, compared to Zimbabwe, compared to Nigeria, South Africa is the lowest number of young people starting any kind of entrepreneurial activity. We've got the lowest total early stage entrepreneurial activity today.
That actually scares me quite a lot, but at the same time, I'm so happy that we're having this conversation, and that Asisa Foundation has created this space to talk about entrepreneurship and side hustle.
Yeah.
So, Owen, to those that have already started a side hustle, so they've taken this deep, step to get into this journey, how do they move it from a side hustle to an actual business? What are some of the things that they need to be thinking about in order to move it into a business where they can then start to employ other young people that are unemployed?
Yeah. So I think by the time you've started a hustle, I think you've already passed two of the stages. And two of the stages is number one, identifying a problem. I think you brought it up earlier on, and making sure that you've got the right value proposition that is meeting that problem, or that is meeting that market gap. So that's already stage number one. And by the time you've got a functioning side hustle, you've already started with stage one. But stage two is actually managing that side hustle going forward. And managing speaks to number one, having proper finance systems. I think I like all of the slides that you shared earlier on around managing the finances. Also having the right leadership within the business. Also having the right skills in the business. That's the real only way you can grow any kind of side hustle. So key is managing your finances very well. So one of the biggest reasons why businesses in South Africa fail is not because the ideas are bad. It's not because the people don't have skills, but it's mostly because we don't manage our finances very well. The same business account that you use for your customers is the same business account that you use at News Cafe when you're swiping beers and you're swiping alcohol and you're swiping all of that. That already is a bad behavior or mindset that you might have. So once you're quite sure of the idea that you have, and once you're quite sure that people are willing to pay you for what you're serving in the market, the next thing is building the right management skills, starting with your finances. Finance is probably number one. And then also number two, growing your own capabilities and your competencies. So number one, so if you are, let's say, a computer coder, there's new languages of coding that are being generated. There's new ways of doing it. So the more you develop yourself, is the more your business also grows. So there is a quotation that says, your success is very equal to how much you develop yourself as an individual. So it speaks to you as an individual, but it also speaks to your business. The success of your business is going to be very equal to how much you develop the skills you have in your business. Which means if you don't develop the skills in your business will not be successful. If you increase how you develop the skills in your business, also your business will become successful. So there are all these different things that we can speak about. But number one is once you're secure around the idea that you're serving, and once you're sure that you've got customers that are willing to buy from you, the next is managing your finances, separating personal and business finances, but also developing your competencies and your capabilities within the business. The world is changing. What we used to be good 2 years ago, or how you used to bake a cake 2 years ago, is not how you can bake a cake now. So you continuously need to develop yourself as you go forward.
Tippy, so Owen, sorry, this is why you are the experts, right? You've said so many important things. This idea of self-discipline, this idea of having a teachable spirit, so you're willing to learn, to increase your skills, to research, to ask, to not have this arrogance, idea, to humble yourself, which I think is so crucial. But what you've said as well is that one of the things that will determine if you succeed, your side hustle, is actually you, the individual that is trying to start this. How are you behaving? How are you treating yourself? How are you researching and planning, which I think is so important. And that's what we're getting a lot in the chat. And it's got me thinking, what do we say, Owen, to these individuals who are currently studying? It could be whatever it is, and they are planning to become entrepreneurs when they graduate. How do they prepare themselves now before they graduate? What should they be doing? What should they be reading?
Yeah. So in preparation, the first step is to know the field that you want to get into. Because the one thing you must know is if you are thinking of now starting a saloon, remember, you're not the only one that's about to start a saloon. So if you're not the only one, then the question is, how better are you than everybody else who's trying to start a saloon right now? That's unfortunately, that's what business is about. Competition against many other people. So if you want to prepare yourself to move into the business world, make sure that you are the best in whatever skill that is. Because baking a cake, make sure that you bake a cake better than everybody else. Because business is, the equation of business is people like what you're providing in the market and they pay you. If there's anyone else who's doing it better than you, they will likely go to the next person. So First of all, make sure that your skills, your capabilities in whatever it is that you've chosen, or whatever field you've chosen, is better than everybody else in the market. If you can't get a skill better than everybody else, make sure that you find that person who's better than you and probably work with them or hire them or employ them. So develop yourself and make sure your skills are better. But also, the one thing that I say to people that want to go into entrepreneurship is the only way to know whether or not it's meant for you is give it a go. Because I think sometimes we spend so much time writing business plans, preparing, and planning and more planning and more planning, and you never actually get to do anything. Try it out. Just jump in there and see how if it's meant for you. Because the more you plan, the more you're just going to paralyze yourself with more planning and more planning and more planning. Sometimes you just won't know. You just cannot plan for everything. Jump into the game and see if it's meant for you.
Man. Owen, please get into the chat. There's so many comments, so many questions for you as well. Your insights are absolutely amazing. And of course, I'll be bringing you and Sipiso back for a Q&A. So to our audience, if you have a burning question around entrepreneurship, side hustles, Sipiso and Owen are here. There is a Q&A tab right at the bottom. Click it. And then, of course, we will be able to throw your question towards them. Let us know. I'm going to quickly dive into the chat, see what some of our young people are saying. Thank you so much, Owen. This is coming from one dealer saying, I have gained a lot from hearing you speak. Bertha says, hashtag secure the bag, interesting and very motivating. And of course, remember, keep clicking on that poll real quickly. I see Lesejo also enjoying and loving it. Kwanele says, I'm feeling super motivated. So many good things are coming out of today's webinar. That's absolutely amazing. Thank you guys so much. So I'm going to quickly bring the gents back into the picture. I'm going to bring Owen back. I'm going to bring Sipiso back into the conversation. It is time for that Q&A. We do have a number of questions coming from young people. And there's a very interesting one that comes up, and it comes up quite a lot. And I'm going to quickly throw it to Owen and then throw it to Sipiso. And it's this question around, are entrepreneurs born or are they made, right? Are you born with certain skills that give you an advantage to start a side hustle in a business? Particularly when I heard Sipiso saying, I just automatically just started selling. And I wonder what your guys' thoughts are. Owen, are entrepreneurs born, are they made?
Right, so that's been a question that a lot of researchers have been battling with from scratch. There's always this view that other people entrepreneurs more than other people. But I think the latest research says that, yes, there are some people that are much more inclined at the beginning than others. So there's just some people like Elon Musk that just like out there for different reasons, they can start different things many times. But there's a lot of research that says that anyone can literally develop any of those skills. So it's similar to going to the gym. Some people just are born with better stamina than others, but the more you practice, the more you go to the gym, some skills you can build them, over time. So the answer is no, you don't have to be born to be an entrepreneur, but over time, there's some skills that you can learn over time, particularly a mindset. So if you look at a mindset shift called the growth mindset, so just Google the growth mindset and just look at what that speaks about. It speaks about how you can continuously develop. And I like something that Sipiso said. He said a teachable spirit. There's also a concept called the beginner's mindset. So the beginner's mindset says you approach everything as if you're doing it from the start. The people that don't do well in entrepreneurship is those that presents themselves as experts. If you get to a point where you're an expert and no one else can teach you, I can tell you that's the fastest way you can go down in business. Having an open mind and business mindset that keeps on helping you develop new skills over and over time will make you a successful entrepreneur. So the answer is no. You don't have to be born to be an entrepreneur, but you can, over time, by practice and by learning and going to school, you can develop some skills that other people are born with.
Yeah, that makes sense. Sipiso, do you agree with that? Are entrepreneurs born? Are they made?
Yeah. Actually, I share the same sentiments with Brother Owen, because yeah, like my initial answer is actually that there are some certain traits that, you have to be born with, like resilience, because if you don't have resilience, I don't think you can actually get it somewhere, but also, I think if, with continuous, teachings, and having to go out there to business seminars, engaging with people who are doing the real work, and not just being behind the scene, planning and doing. And I think that the only way for you to find out that you're an entrepreneur is really by starting. Just start, and just forget about these plans and stuff. Just start.
A question for you specifically, Tshepiso, comes from Masohonolo, who says, one of the questions is, no, it's from Ayanda, saying, what is the most challenging thing about entrepreneurship for you?
Okay. For me, I think it's actually, having to have that don't die spirit, because every day you face, actually every week I get to a point where I'm like, yo, am I really doing this? Let me just stop with all this, because there are some people, they're not stressing, you're just being a student. And I think it's up to us as entrepreneurs who are already doing the work to be authentic with our journey, because as we're seeing people on social media being entrepreneurs, buying those cars, and we think that this journey is something that's something that's really nice. It's nice, the benefits are there, but then it's not as it's not the feeds and glamours that you see. So I think having that spirit of not giving up, for me, it's something that I actually I have to keep on developing each and every day.
Yeah. Love that. Owen, this one is for you, and I'll go back to my Sohonolo, who says, how do you suggest one goes about expanding their customer base for a business that they have? Owen, how do we answer this one? So this individual already has a business, but they want to sort of grow their customer base. Owen, what?
I think it's continuously finding what your customers' needs are and trying to meet those needs. So I think I like the fact that you gave an example of Uber. So Uber, when they started, it was only UberX, right? And then over time, they identified that people sometimes need to live in luxury, and then they produced Uber Black. From Uber Black, then they produced Uber Assist, and then Uber Connect, and then Uber Van, and Uber Eats, and Uber. They kept on, but at the core of it, they still looked at their individual and continuously researched on what are the different needs that the same individual has. And as people grow, the needs change. For now, I'm happy with UberX, but the moment I start earning $1 million, I would like to be Uber Black, because my needs have changed. The moment I start, so continuously, people's needs continuously change. And in the same way that people's needs continuously change, your business continuously needs to change. If you are selling cupcakes 2 years ago to the same customers, and you're still selling cupcakes 5 years later, then there's something wrong with your ability to identify your customers' needs, or there's something wrong with your business from scratch. So there's this continuous ear on the ground to understand, what do my customers need now? And should you identify what they need now, you change your business so that you can meet that need. So just as much as Uber. So Uber's growth is particularly because they're so good at identifying what do they need. Let's add a bit more for the people's needs.
Yeah, so of course we are running out of time, but there's this one question that has dominated the Q&A. So I'm going to ask Owen and Tshepiso to wrap it up real quickly, and then for them to jump into the chat and to start answering certain people. It's this question around funding and having money for my small business. It's coming up quite a lot. So Simpiwa says, any tips on how I can get finance to start my small business? Tshepiso, let me start with you. You did mention that you didn't need quite a lot of funding, but for those, and I'm sure they also ask you as well, where do we get funding? What are your thoughts? Sometimes we're so obsessed with, we need to get capital, we need to get money. But I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, so what I always, say is that you don't need funding to start, but you need funding to grow, because, in a real world, I don't think anyone can just fund someone with just an idea without having to show real work, So start something, have a niche, have a small market that you actually, produce those muffins to, then show that, okay, this is a running business. This is something that's actually, that it has a potential to grow. So after having to have that proof of concept, that's where you can now go to funding. And for funding, you can go to institutions like the CEDA, CETA, of which, sure, it's a long process, but then also incubate. Maybe you can make research on how incubators work. There's something called an incubation, of which I think it's mostly an efficient way of getting funding for your business.
Yeah. Owen, I know this one comes quite a lot to you as well. This idea of funding, it's almost like an obsession. I mean, where do we get funding? And at what point do you actually need it? I'd love for you to school us on this one.
It's the response is usually one. It's called the triple F. Triple F meaning friends, family, and fools. Where you are at the moment, you are at a stage where you are testing your business. Testing your business means you're not yet registered. So if you're not registered, forget about trying to get money from a bank, forget about trying to get money from a business agency. The people that might likely be able to fund you at this stage is your family, your friends, and other fools that believe in your business. And so these are the people that you should go to. So an uncle that might have a bit of money that can give you an extra 10,000, a friend that believes in you can give you another 5,000, or all of that. That for now, at least in this testing phase, is the state at the people that you should try and get your funding from. But if you really want to go, professional and institutional, then it requires you to begin to register your business, because no bank, no institution is going to give you funding when you just don't have an idea on paper and it's not registered. So that takes a process as well, because when you register a business, then you've got tax obligations, you've got all these other things that come with it. But if you're in this testing phase, it's really people around you, people that trust you, people that look at you and say, we believe in this guy, we can give you a bit of money. So those are your family, your friends, and fools around.
Oh, I love that, the triple F. Owen Tsepiso, thank you guys so much. Please dive into the chat and interact with some of the audience. They've got so many questions, so many comments for you guys. Let me quickly go back to our slides in terms of the webinars and all the important things that you need to consider in week 4 of our webinars. So let's focus on week 4 activities and reflections, right? So in terms of week 4 activities and reflections, remember to register on the Zlato platform if you would like to win some goodies and participate in our challenge. This is the challenge. Put together a short creative video about what you've learned on this topic of entrepreneurship and side hustles, and then share it with us. It could be a song, it could be a poem, it could be a rap, it could be a dialogue. Keep it to a maximum of 3 minutes and you could stand a chance to win 280 Zlato. Register and submit your video on the platform. And of course, those are the details in terms of what you need to do to participate. There is a link that you can use to register. You create an account, you upload your profile picture, you complete the task, which is this creative 3-minute video. You then submit proof of it on the actual platform itself, and you could win yourself 280 Zlato. I'm so jealous. I wish I could win, because if you do win, then you can spend it at a couple of places. You could buy some airtime, some electricity. You could go to KFC, Specsavers. You could go to ShopRite, Netcare, Pick and Pay. There's so much that you could do if you win. That's really, really important. And of course, don't forget, register on the Zlato platform. Each week, prizes will be awarded to 9 students who actively participated as well in our webinars and our polls. For resources for the webinar recording, visit the L+EARN website, which is www.l+earn.org.za. Check under 2022 webinars or under the news and events section of the website. Thank you so much for joining the L+EARN Consumer Financial Education Program, Webinar 4 on entrepreneurship and side hustles. Thank you so much to Tsepiso, to Owen, to the Asisa Foundation, and for you for joining us. Next week, it's all about credit. Until then, enjoy, be safe. Next week, it's all about managing your credit.